Our story revolves around a weak boy is bullied because he cannot create any magic spells, but he astonishes everyone by having the strongest dark magic in the academy. Our first episode of this new anime begins at the Regarden Magical Academy, where our protagonist, Will Serfort, tells us that the most valuable thing at this academy is the talent for magic. He then wonders about the people who do not possess magical talent, and whether there is a way to apply to this academy. The scene then shifts to Daima's on the 7th floor, where we see Will fighting a huge monster. He answers the previous question by saying that the way to apply is to go to Daima's to kill the monsters. He then delivers a very powerful blow to the monster and kills it. After that, many huge monsters appear before him, and Will says, even if I can't use magic, I can defeat them and kill all the monsters. The scene then shifts to the city of Orbis Regarden, the capital of magic. We see all the students at the academy, where teacher Edward Servans tells them that transferring a small amount of magic to an ore or dust creates a lump of sulfur, and thus it is possible to ignite a bright fire. Then we see teacher Edward calling out to Will, but Will doesn't pay attention to him at first. When he finally does, he apologizes to his teacher. The teacher then asks him to come down to the front of the class. Will goes down beside the teacher, and we see a blue magic stone and a vial of red liquid on the desk in front of him. The teacher tells him that this is a very simple test. He just needs to use the catalyst liquid to summon the fire. Will tries to use his magic with his magic wand, but fails to ignite the fire, and all the students in the class laugh at him. After that, we see a boy named Shin Alistair using his magic wand to ignite the fire in the stone. Teacher Edward then tells Sean not to show off his talents without permission first. Sean apologizes, saying he wanted to help because Will was not at his best. The teacher then says that's enough, uses his magic to break the stone, and tells everyone in this world the dominance of magic is absolute. Magic is authority and power. Here at this academy, it is their magical talent that earns them respect. Someone without talent who only has theoretical knowledge and can't use magic is not qualified to be in this academy, which hosts many sages. Such talentless individuals should withdraw. We then see Will walking with Colette, who tells him not to let what happened earlier affect him and that what teacher Edward did was also wrong. Will tells her that they are right. He is not good at using magic at all. Then he smiles and says that having a beautiful girl like her care about his affairs makes him very happy. Colette is very surprised and asks if he is flirting with her with those words or what he wants. Will tells her that he doesn't mean anything by it. He has been used to complimenting girls since he was young. He then says to her, I am very charming. She gets angry with him again and tells him not to say such things to her anymore. Colette then talks to herself, saying, I am Colette Lawyer, the daughter of a noble family, and I must maintain my composure. She then sees Will looking at something in front of him and asks if he is okay. Will tells her that he is fine. He is just admiring the beauty of this place. Colette comments on the warm light, saying the strongest sorcerers like Magia Vander continue to hold up the sky. People knew nothing about the sky and were shrouded in darkness. The world was terrified of the celestial soldiers until 5 sorcerers rose against them. These sorcerers repelled the invaders, defeated them soundly, and imprisoned them, creating a barrier between them and the earth. They brought peace to the planet, and the people were so overjoyed that they cried tears of happiness. The title of Magia Vander spread from that time and has since been granted only to the strongest. Everyone dreams of it at least once, dreaming of the honor of becoming a sorcerer. Colette then asks him, do you think the Ice Maiden's magical staff, Albs Vaina, protects us today as well? He responds, my dear, it is God who protects us and it is God who takes our lives. But I know that Vaina sits in the skyscrapers, watching everyone from above. One day, we can climb the Magia Vander tower and watch the sunset from the top. Will then recalls his innocent childhood when he made a promise with his friend to climb and see the sky from above. It wasn't just a promise. His friend used her talent to become the youngest person to earn the title of Magia Vander and left for the top of the tower. As for him, someone without talent, he is less than average. But because he refuses to give up the promise they made that day, he continues to strive to achieve his dream of standing by her side. The scene shifts to Will and his teacher, who is angry at him for entering Daima's without permission and for reaching the 7th floor alone. Will apologizes for what happened, but asks about his points. The teacher tells him that he earned 2 points for killing an evil guardian. Will is very happy, But the teacher warns him that if he still desires to become Magia Vander, he could die. He tells him to be very careful from now on. He also advises Will that before he climbs that tower, he needs to qualify for the higher institution. To do that, he needs to write, calculate, practice, maintain physical fitness, eat properly, sleep on time, and wake up early. The teacher continues, additionally, you need a substantial amount of points from all three curricula. Since you cannot use magic, you will never be able to earn spell points. Will responds, well, teacher, I focus more on practical application by gathering points from daimas. But the teacher tells him, I've already informed you that advancing solely through practical application is practically impossible. Will is shocked by this because he isn't good at using magic. Saddened, Will listens as the teacher scolds him. Stop thinking about becoming a Magia Vander when you haven't even graduated yet. I know you failed to earn any points in your recent exams, which means you need to earn 4 points by the end of the week. Will puts his hand on his head, realizing he has only 1 day left. He quickly grabs a book to see which monster is worth 4 points so he can kill it. The teacher then says, well, I think there's news about a large monster worth 4 points on the 6th floor that hasn't been killed yet. Will is overjoyed and hugs his teacher tightly. The scene shifts to the 6th floor of Daima's, where we see Will walking with his cat, Kiki, who accompanies him wherever he goes. He tells her that tonight he will earn 4 points. He has fought Baskerville before and feels confident that everything will be fine as long as he is cautious about its fire breath and doesn't get burned like last time. He tells Kiki that he will rely on her sense of smell. At that moment, a massive explosion occurs, and a huge monster emerges from behind Laurel. The monster roars loudly, and Will and Kiki hear it, prompting them to rush towards the sound to see what's happening. Despite the roar being far away, they hear it due to the vibrations. Shion uses his power to strike the monster, but nothing happens. Will is shocked by the size of the monster, realizing that such a creature should be found in much deeper floors and wondering how it made its way up to this level. Shion tries to strike the monster again with his power, but it has no effect. His magic doesn't affect the monster at all, as it's on a completely different level. Shion continues to try repeatedly, but to no avail. Will considers helping him, but hesitates, recalling how Shion mocked and bullied him mercilessly. If he runs away and leaves Shion, the monster will surely kill him. Something stirs inside Will as he remembers his beloved Elvie telling him that he is very brave. He had always thought she was wrong about him, believing that all he wanted was to stand by her side and be worthy of her. He felt like a shameful, pathetic person. Mustering his courage, Will rushes quickly to save Shion. Will attacks the monster with his sword, parrying its blows to save his friend. Back to Will, he is fighting the monster, striking it with all his might, dodging its attacks, and even cutting off one of its fingers. The monster lunges at him, but Will parries the attack and hits the monster with all his strength. Edward and Warwick arrive, and are astonished by Will's power. Warwick comments Will is an anomaly. He possesses a strength that no sorcerer can have, with a build as sturdy as a dwarf's, high-level tracking skills, and precise analysis of enemy strategies after seeing them just once. Although he can't use even a fraction of magic in this magic-filled world, he's the sole warrior. The monster uses its magic to try and kill Will, but Will uses his enormous sword to deflect the monster's magical force and then delivers a powerful strike, killing it. The monster's body parts scatter everywhere. Afterward, Will approaches Shin and extends his hand to help him. But Shion, angry, refuses to speak to him. The scene then shifts to Edward and Warwick, with Edward astonished, saying, I can't believe it. Someone incapable of using magic can outperform a top student. Warwick then speaks to Will, saying, I will award you 10 points. Will rejoices, exclaiming, this is the story of a boy who will turn the world upside down. The tale of the union of the magic wand and the sword. And 5 years ago, where we see Will at the age of 10 being teased by his friends because he cannot use magic. They wonder how he will succeed at the academy. It seems he was bait to lure Elveria-sama to the school, and now Elveria is a Magia Finder. They no longer need Will and plan to expel him. We then see Will standing beside his teacher, Worknor Norgarm, in the headmistress's office. The headmistress uses her magic to send a sword towards Will. He catches it and we see him attacking all the magical circles and overcoming them, surprising his teacher. The headmistress laughs and says she will allow Will to stay at the academy despite his lack of magic ability. Will eagerly asks if he can climb the tower if he studies at this academy, and if he becomes strong, can he go to Elfie? The headmistress tells him to work hard, and if his determination is strong, it's possible. Will leaves with his teacher, and we see the headmistress apologizing for not having a successor, implying responsibility falls on Will. She then uses her magic on the sword before her, imagining it becoming a magic wand. The scene shifts to the present where everyone is in the academy classroom. The teacher explains that climbing the tower means advancing to the higher institution to become a Magia Vander, residing in the upper floors of Mercedes Callas. There are two main ways to advance: inventing a new type of magic or earning at least 7,200 points at the academy. The majority will likely rely on the latter method. He warns them of the risk of not graduating and announces comprehensive supplementary lessons. Then the scene shifts to the academy's director, where teacher Edward tells her that the new boy should be expelled from the academy. She tells him to hold on, mentioning that Will is already in his 6th and final year there. Edward argues that the academy doesn't need a non-magic user like Will, but the director counters that the academy was specifically created for teaching magic, and his lack of it shouldn't be a reason for expulsion. The director uses her power and brings out Will's book, which contains reports showing his good academic performance and intriguing reports about his magic potential. Despite lacking magic, he excels to the extent that calling him brilliant is an understatement. Regardless, he could become literally anything, even a very successful doctor or lawyer. There are many paths open to him, and it's the academy's duty to graduate aspiring scholars for the future. However, Edward tells her that Will isn't aspiring to be an academic scholar. She tells him that if he's determined about that, he must test him. If he passes, he'll continue at the academy. If not, he'll leave immediately. Since you now know his secret, I'll leave you to oversee the test yourself. Do as you wish. He asks her if she's sure about this. I'm not lenient like Warwick. She replies that she knows what she's saying. She'll leave the nature of the test up to him. Edward leaves, and the director thinks to herself that he'll test him and find that his strength is invincible, and then he'll be shocked by the truth. They then go to the study hall where he talks to her about the Battle of Gazaronso in the year 344 of the magical era, where the dwarves from another world revolted due to exploitation, hard labor, and mistreatment compared to the elves. They gathered an army to wage war, but she interrupts saying, "Didn't we study this already?" He confirms yes, but he's reviewing everything he's learned. She's impressed with his actions and tells him he's far better than she is, not needing to exhaust himself in work. He responds that if he loses even by a single point, he won't qualify for the Higher Institute of Sorcery. He understands the dwarves' feelings as even facing the greatest sorcerers, they continued to fight with unwavering determination. Such resolve can surpass even magic. She says, asking if he learned this wisdom from Professor Warwick. He affirms he did and will do his best for it. Then she notices his white hair due to exhaustion, scolding him for overworking himself with work and study. She asks to remove it for him, but he refuses. In these names, we find Professor Edward appearing behind them, asking about the commotion they were making. She apologizes and they say they were just studying. After that, Professor Edward speaks to Will and tells him to come to the spell hall immediately and alone. We then see the professor and the dean walking in the spell hall. The professor says that since he can't ignore Will's continued failure in spellcasting, he will give him a supplementary lesson. Will is surprised by this and asks why he would give him a special lesson alone. The professor tells him that he will prove his worth himself and will test him. Then the professor begins to perform a very powerful magical spell and tells Will that his task is to hit him with a single attack, and refusal is not an option. If he succeeds, he will reward him with 5 points in spellcasting, but if he fails, he will expel him from the academy immediately. Will is taken aback by this statement, and then the professor continues, saying those without talent should not even be allowed to look at Magia Vander, and that he has given him sufficient reason to fight. Meanwhile, Warwick enters the director's office, and the director apologizes to him, saying she regrets making him go through all this trouble. She informs him about what is happening between Will and Edward and then offers him to witness their fight. The professor is surprised by this and asks, "Wait, what is this?" The director responds that Edward is testing him and he is forbidden from intervening. All he needs to do is watch. She admits that just as she supported Will, whom she supervised, she must also acknowledge Edward's concerns, and this is the decision she has made. She must acknowledge Edward's concerns to the same degree, and that's the decision the director has made. She requested him to verify if Will is worthy of attempting to become a Mage Finder. He replied and denied that this was impossible because he feared Will might fail. She asked why specifically Professor Edward, as this was excessively harsh. She responded that Edward was the closest to becoming a Mage Finder. It's true that he was defeated, but he reached the tower's summit. After that, we see Edward using the spell Dax Darbicanus. Will is stunned because it's a low-level dark magic spell, yet it possesses tremendous power. Will moves towards Edward to strike him, but Edward, known for his strong defense, effortlessly parries Will's blow and knocks him to the ground. Will realizes that Edward casts spells silently and swiftly without any openings in his offense or defense. Will cannot even touch him because Edward is too powerful. Edward speaks to Will, informing him that they are only two sorcerers. The only ones he will use are the Black Flame to burn and the Black Shield to repel his ugly savagery. Edward can use over 1,000 magical spells, while Will struggles to master even one. These 1,000 spells would become 1,000 arrows against him, as Edward interweaves them into one spell, unleashing a torrent of Dax Darbicanus. Indeed, Edward launches his spells at Will, who can do nothing but be struck down and fall to the ground. Will is deeply saddened because he cannot defeat Edward. He lacks any sword to do so. We see Will lying on the ground. Edward informs him that Mage Finders are the pinnacle of sorcerers. If Will cannot overcome someone like him, he has no chance of reaching such heights. Edward then poses a question to him about the Battle of Garveronsu, where foolish dwarves rebelled with an army of 10,000. Here's the English translation of the provided Arabic text. Then Edward speaks to Will, saying, "I will ask you about the Battle of Garveronsu, where dwarves rebelled with an army of 10,000. How many sorcerers suppressed them in battle?" Edward strikes Will and puts his foot on his head, saying, "It was just one, with a wave of a magical staff, who killed 10,000 dwarf warriors. That's how this world works, because a sword can never compare to a magical staff. Abandon all your futile ambitions." Will tells him that he wants to reach Mage Finder and stands up, asking Edward about the reason he claims to hold in his heart. Will responds, "I want to be with the one I love and fulfill the promise I made to Elvie." Edward scoffs, saying, "A worldly love foolishly drives you to reach the pinnacle of magic." Will tells him that this reason may be foolish to him, but it's his path and he will achieve it. He says he will go and watch the sunset with Elvie. At that moment, Laurie arrives and gives the sword to Will, who thanks her profusely. Edward uses his magic on Will, but Will easily defends against it. Edward is astonished that the sword pierced through his magic, and he uses a stronger magic next, making Will fear the power of Edward's magic, which is more terrifying than 1,000 flames. Will cannot stand due to the strength and form of Edward's magic. Will thinks to himself, "This is the barrier between me and Mage Finder. I want to escape, but this is my only way to break through the barrier." Edward casts his power at Will, who manages to defend against Edward's magic, saying, "There is a continuation to the story of the Battle of Garveronsu, where the leader of the dwarves named Gareth fought even after losing all his kin. Despite everything, he landed one blow as a tribute to his bravery. The sorcerers acknowledged the dwarves' place with respect to the sword and reached it. Will breaks through the barrier around Edward and points the sword at him. Edward then leaves, telling him, "You will be rewarded with 5 points." Laurie rushes to him to check on Will, who doesn't seem to be in good health. Later, we see Will and his companion Kiki distributing newspapers to houses. They tell someone that he is as energetic and dazzling as usual, greet him, and then leave. While Will is running quickly, he trips and falls. But before hitting the ground, he manages to gather all the newspapers before they scatter. He then sees an announcement that his friend Elfie has created a new original spell and is the first to achieve this great accomplishment by inventing 12 spells. He remarks that she is really working hard and decides that he should also give his best effort. Then it is told that the Queen of Magic, Mercedes, one of the great pioneers, once said, "Everything was born from the Dymus, O children of magic. Draw your knowledge and wisdom from it and follow its paths. Turn the unknown into the known and conquer it. Everything is connected to each other." After that, we find Will on the 4th floor of Dimas, wandering around. All the students start destroying the ice creatures to obtain the ice cores. He remarks that there is a great rush due to Elfie's request. Then he is surprised when he sees the student Shion, who is very strong and blows up all the Frostwalkers in one go. Shion says that such weaklings are not sufficient for his purpose. Will then recalls the time when he fought the giant monster. We'll see Shion from afar and comments on how strong he is, but it seems like he's only here to shed blood. At this rate, there will be nothing left for Will to hunt. So, he quickly dives deeper into Dymas to find some monsters. He is shocked to encounter many giant monsters, and one almost kills a female student. Will swiftly saves her with his exceptional speed and sharp sword, taking down 3 monsters at once. The girl is astonished and notes that he didn't use any magic, only his sword. She thanks him for saving her, and he introduces himself as Will. She replies that her name is Iris. Suddenly, a monster appears and attacks them. Will quickly picks up Iris to shield her from the monster's attacks. When Iris looks at the monster, she realizes it is a Frost Rex, the most powerful form of the Frostwalkers, valued at 6 points. The monster launches an attack at them, but Will dodges it and asks Iris to stay aside while he faces the monster. Iris warns him that physical attacks won't work on this monster. Anything that touches it freezes instantly. Therefore, close combat is impossible, and the only way to deal with it is by launching long-range magical attacks. Will reassures her not to worry, saying he has fought many such monsters before. Will approaches the monster and begins dodging all its attacks. He then wraps a rope around the monster and explains the Frost Rex is weak against fire and explosive attacks. Will then sets the rope on fire, causing an explosion that kills the monster. Iris watches in awe and thinks to herself, is this the supposedly talentless Will? There's a stark contrast between the rumors I've heard and the reality I'm seeing. How should I report this? Will ask her to return, and the scene shifts to the wizard's tower. We see Iris walking alone, thinking Will can't use magic, but his method of compensating is creative, and he has combat sense backed by experience. He's not a wizard in the traditional sense. She then enters a meeting room where 4 people are present. Cariode, Eleanor, Zio, and Elveria. Iris tells them that she discovered an interesting person during her tour of the academy, a person without magic talent named Will Serfort. She suggests considering him for a position in the tower. Everyone rejects the idea, asking her not to increase the number of weak people around them. Cariode advises everyone to calm down and not rush, as the time for the Great Magic Festival is near and they can postpone the decision until they see the results. The meeting ends, and everyone leaves except for Elveria, who says, Will, I am waiting for you. With Shion and Colette fighting monsters and defeating them using magic. Their success is then announced. Next, we see Will fighting a monster, attempting to punch it. The other students mock him because Will is a student at the Magic Academy who intends to punch the monster and cannot use magic. The monster strikes Will, knocking him to the ground. One of the students tells his friend that Will cannot use magic and cannot even defeat the golem monster. His friend responds that this is expected from a bookworm who fails at using magic spells. We then see Lihana and Fignal using their magic, combining it and launching it at the golem monster, defeating and killing it. Their success is also announced. Julius then steps into the arena, uses his magic, casts some ice magic on the monsters, and freezes them all. His success is announced as well. We then see Lihana talking to Fignal, telling him that he and Julius have never lost their skills. Fignal responds that there is no reason for him to lose his skill. Julius approaches them and tells them that he will defeat them this time with his newly acquired secret technique. Julius uses his magic and Ice Rose appears in his hand. When he throws it towards Fignal, Fignal uses his magic to shatter the rose into small pieces. Then he and Lyanna leave to the dining hall at the academy. We see Colette sitting beside Will angrily, telling him that he must be chosen for the Grand Magic Festival, and that qualifying for the higher institution based on writing and practical applications alone is unrealistic. She mentions that there are precedents for students with less than 7,200 points being selected and ascending the tower immediately. Will agrees with her, but points out that during the Grand Magic Festival, everyone tries to turn the tide with one attempt, making everyone eager. The Grand Magic Festival is an event held by Regarden Magical Academy once every 2 years and includes a large number of various competitions and high-ranking mages who descend from the Exploration Tower. Colette tells him that the Grand Magic Festival is actually a competition between students from different tower factions. And it can be said that it is the place where qualification for the tower is decided. As for the factions, they are the staff of the Thunderlord Terzius, the staff of the Sacred Thousand Elf Canaan, the staff of the Flame Emperor Braham, and the staff of the Ice Virgin Vienna. Regardless of the staff of the Light Sultan Masteras, the current Mage Finder leads these 4 main factions alone. So if one of these 4 factions chooses you, your acceptance as a member of the tower will be guaranteed. He said to her, "How can that be when I cannot use powerful magic? One must perform magic that surpasses the performance of a high-level sorcerer." She replied, "Oh dear, that's not all. It is said that people known as observers appear at the festival. They select outstanding talents and transfer them to the tower." Will said to her, "Observers? That's one of the 7 Academy legends. Someone without talent should not draw attention at the Great Magic Festival. I will work behind the scenes again this year and contribute to the operations." Colette told him that if he participated now, she believed it would change people's perception of him. Will thanked her for that, but mentioned that if he participated, it would turn into an ordinary sporting event. When we were in the 2nd year, he had a hard time because of that. People threw stones, sticks, and chairs at him during the 50th festival, also known as the worst in history. It was really terrible, and because of that, it drew negative attention. This is a source of psychological trauma for me now. I am really shocked by what happened before. Currently, we feel how close the Great Magic Festival is, and there are many scouts from other capitals besides Regarden coming too. Even if we can't climb the tower, there is a possibility of taking other paths. Will told her that since it is a place that attracts people with abilities, the Great Magic Festival is truly ideal. Then they enter the places of the wheels and continue talking. Colette tells him that he must take care of himself from now on and promote himself so that everyone young and old knows him. But he replies, "No, I already told you that I cannot use magic." At that moment, Colette leaves him as if she noticed something. Will asks her, "Is something wrong?" She says, "Yes, this place is very strange. It is hidden, but a barrier has been used here. A soundproof and suppressive barrier. I think I can use magic to break it by force." Kiki uses her power for this task and breaks the barrier. When the door opens, they find a hidden staircase under the rubble, but there is a sound coming from below. When they investigate, they discover many people, and it seems to be secret betting on who will climb the tower. When they turn around, they see that Shion is standing and watching. He has a paper, quickly scribbling on it. He asks them angrily, "Why are you here, you fools?" Colette asked him to stop using violence with Will, warning that if he did it again, she would be angry with him. Then she asked why he was there, convinced that he was there to bet on his win in the competition. Shion got angry with her and told her not to meddle in matters that don't concern her. His assistant mentioned that there was a big difference between Will, Lahana, and the others. Shion asked him to be quiet because he didn't like disturbances. Colette understood that he cared about Lahana and the others, despite being a young boy after all. He replied that he wasn't particularly worried, as it wasn't as if they had beaten him. The points he had fallen behind on were simply lost in writing exams, as he had been training since that day. In terms of magical skill, he wasn't different from Lahana and Fignal. Then Shion yelled at them, saying he didn't need to justify his presence there. Julius and his friends entered. When Julius saw the state of the tavern, he was displeased with its appearance. His friend remarked that all the other taverns were closed. Rusty recognized Julius upon seeing him and informed Will of his presence. Julius looked around and found Will in the restaurant. He spoke to him, saying, "Don't tell me you work here." He laughed at him a lot and said, "You are talentless and you savages fit well together." This made the dwarf angry. Julius noticed and said to him, "What's that look in your eyes? You are a lowly race that migrated here from another world. You are allowed to live in this country thanks to others. You should know your place." After that, Will talked to himself, saying, "A long time ago, the world of the dwarves was destroyed by the celestial host. They fled to our world, unlike the elves who treat the dwarves with disdain. If a dwarf touches an elven wizard, their status immediately becomes at risk. In this world, magic is the absolute ruler. Discrimination against dwarves is just a small part of this world. Will served them food, and they mocked him and the food. Julius said, more importantly, he smells bad. It's hard to tolerate this stench. Even monsters are better than these filthy beasts. Get out of our country quickly, and they laughed a lot. Then Will stood in front of them saying, I want you to take back these insults. The dwarf beans that grew from the barren soil represent the essence of dwarf wisdom, and dwarf sweat is proof of their hard work in the harshest conditions. These are not things to be mocked. Julius replied, none of you can use magic. You treat each other's wounds when something smells bad. It's bad. He threw the plate at Will got very angry, attacked them, and knocked them to the ground. Then he said to Julius, the savagery between us is more trivial than the savagery of the dwarves. We are worse than monsters. Julius used his magic on Will, binding his hands with ice. Julius said to him, I participated in the great magic festival, you talentless one. I will humiliate you in front of all those spectators, but will broke the ice and grab the staff. Julius said to him, I will win and remove any ground that makes you belong to the academy. Will replied, but if I win, please apologize to Mr. Donan and the others. Will sitting alone before the celebration, feeling conflicted and anxious, unsure of what to do. He's deep in thought, considering everything from the training he needs to master, the competition he must participate in, to the ultimate goal of becoming a Magia Vindicator to reach the tower. He also recalls the humiliation Julius inflicted on him, realizing that this has become a matter of life and death. He has no choice but to enter the competition for the Grand Magic Festival. The celebration begins with the headmistress of the school announcing the start, wishing everyone a fun and enjoyable time. She welcomes everyone, and the arena, which is huge, is filled with a large and excited crowd ready for the competition. The headmistress officially declares the beginning of the Grand Magic Festival, and all the students are eager to prove themselves. Next, we see one of the students riding a very powerful dragon, seemingly intent on defeating everyone. The audience cheers for everyone, and the first student to appear is Lahana, who is known for her bravery and strength, as she is the best in her class and the top student, unmatched in power and courage. Then we see the Earth Element team, who are shocked because their princess won't be participating. Following that, we observe an analytical team of students recording every event that happens during this competition. Their leader instructs them not to miss any detail, no matter how small, in order to find the ancient Magia Vindicator. They must analyze every moment and event in this competition. The headmistress then mentions that the eyes of the scouts mixed within the crowd are shining, and the Towers group is working efficiently and quickly. Iris responds, saying that this is because mages from outside the tower come during the festival to scout the most promising students at the academy. Next, we see Lahana setting a new record with her second consecutive victory. Afterward, Iris speaks to the headmistress, informing her that she has to leave because she has some work to do, then puts on her glasses and says there's a scene pie she needs to cheer for. The scene then transitions to the beginning of the Magic Festival, where we are introduced to the commentator for the event named Mike. He announces, we also have with us the most disliked teacher in the school, the one students always imagine as a black snake striking them, Professor Edward. Mike starts grumbling, how am I supposed to commentate live next to a snake like him? Edward, annoyed, snaps back, if you don't shut up, I'll deal with you myself. Mike then moves on to announce the main event of the day, the crown attack. He calls out, lights, elf guild, let's get started. The elves begin executing their attack, coordinating with each other in a beautifully magical display. He continues, explaining the setup. We have the swamp zone, the volcano zone, the rough terrain zone, the grassland zone, and the forest zone. All of these varied playfields have been created by summoning the Great Elf. The competition is a team-based event with squads of 3. Each team starts at the outer edge of the field and makes their way to the central arena. In the center of the arena is the crown. The first team to seize it wins. But of course, they won't just face natural obstacles. Many traps set by the Academy's elite teachers will also stand in their way. Direct assaults through the most straightforward path to the arena are allowed, and hindering other teams is also permitted. Out of all the events in the Grand Magic Festival, this one is the most intense and violent. It will turn into an all-out battle where it's every team for itself. Edward then chimes in. The efficiency of 3-person teams and how they handle anomalies will be put to the test in this event, especially with the Daime's attacks in mind. The real excitement in this event lies in watching the students excel in high-level battles. There are 2 particularly famous teams, Julius's 9th squad and the 12th squad led by Lindor. However, the team worth noting for entirely different reasons is the least famous. Squad 6, they are joined by Shion, the hopeful for victory, along with the talentless Will. As the audience hears this, they start laughing at Will, mocking him, saying, "What is this guy thinking? Participating in the crown attack. He should stop before he tarnishes the Academy's reputation." The scene shifts to all the teams entering the arena, and Professor Wanker expresses his surprise upon seeing Will among them. Professor Wanker, astonished, confronts Will, saying, "Are you really planning to participate in this competition? How many times do I have to tell you not to get involved in the magic festival?" However, Will seems distracted, and he apologizes, responding, "Even if it means surpassing him. This is the battle I most want to win." He then leaves without another word. The commentator, Mike, then announces, "Let's begin the crown attack." All the teams dash toward the crown. We see the 9th squad, led by Julius, encountering traps laid before them, which transform into giant golem robots, a vast obstacle known as the Golem Forest, swarming with golems. Meanwhile, Will charges toward these robots at full speed. The students watching are incredulous, saying, "It's impossible." He's launching a suicidal solo attack. In the practical training, he couldn't even scratch one of them. Colette begins preparing her spell to assist Will. Will delivers a powerful punch to one of the robots, destroying many of them in one blow. The crowd is stunned, unable to comprehend how he defeated these robots with just a single strike. Colette explains, even if he can't use magic, as long as he's attacking with a magical gauntlet, we're not breaking any rules. Will becomes the first to break through the Golem Forest, leaving everyone astonished. Meanwhile, Shion is in shock, remembering the past, thinking to be saved by someone like him. "I'd rather die than forgive myself." Squad 6, led by Will, is the first to break through the rough terrain zone, taking the lead in the attack. As they advance, new traps spring into action, but Will slams his iron fist into the ground, creating a shield that protects his team from all incoming attack. Colette also prepares her magic, summoning magical swords for Will to use. Will throws them, successfully destroying all the traps in their path. With strength and courage, they easily make their way through the rough terrain. As the other teams hear about Will's progress, they grumble. "Let that talentless guy get ahead of us," but they quickly fall into traps and are eliminated from the competition. All teams rush forward, but the traps activate mercilessly. Squad 6, led by Will, remains in the lead, causing everyone to wonder if a talentless individual will be the first to reach the arena. Meanwhile, Julius easily freezes all the magical traps and asks his companions for updates. They report, according to our research, Will's team is in the lead. "At this rate, they'll reach the arena before us." Julius responds, "No problem. I'll go after them quickly." Eventually, Squad 6 reaches the enchanted forest, where traps start forming around them. Will begins to attack them and says, "I'll let them cancel each other out." And indeed, he manages to neutralize all the traps. This amazes everyone, while Mike, the commentator, announces, "What will you do now, Professor Edward, as the one who set the dark magic trap field?" Edward is furious, seeing that Will has managed to overcome everything despite... We then return to Will, who reflects on the situation. Considering the famous crown attack, it's likely they will face other teams as they approach the arena, where the real battle will begin. Will decides that they need to secure the area by setting up a strategic ambush to gain an advantage and wait for Julius. Just then, a major surprise occurs. Julius arrives before them and attacks. Will and Colette are shocked, as Julius has managed to defeat their magic strategy and escape. Julius unleashes his powerful ice magic, with ice shots flying everywhere like a rapid-fire machine gun. Despite this, Will skillfully dodges the attacks. Things get even worse when Shion, the boy who despises Will, appears. He is determined to kill Will no matter the cost and uses his fiery flames to try and burn him. Shion unleashes his full power, directing it straight at Will. At the last moment, Colette intervenes and casts a protective barrier around Will. The explosion's force is so intense that it shakes the entire city, causing widespread destruction. But fortunately, Will is still unharmed. He removes his glasses and sees that the entire Tree Sea has been demolished. Shion appears, ready to confront Will face to face. Will is taken aback and says, "What are you doing here? We're in a competition." Before he can finish, Shion, furious, attacks him, declaring, "I won't tolerate you any longer. I don't want to hear or see you again. So I've decided to crush you now." Colette intervenes, shouting, "Stop, Shion. This is against the rules." However, Julius activates a barrier around Colette, preventing her from interfering. We witness the epic battle between Will and Shion. Will's sword is knocked away, and he pleads with Shion to stop, explaining that this is not the time for personal fights. They are in a competition. Shion, however, insists, "Come on, you talentless fool. Grab your sword quickly, or I'll kill you right now." Will, enraged, resolves to fight back. The outcome of this monumental battle remains uncertain, given Will's lack of magical ability. Will he manage to prevail in this grand conflict? Stay tuned to find out in the next episode and future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all the exciting new content. The episode begins with chaos and flames in the forest, and we find that Will is confused about what happened. At that moment, Shion speaks and says, "Leave, Julius, you are in my way." Colette thinks to herself, what is happening? Was he aiming at Julius or what? But then she realizes, no, he was aiming at Will. Shion then says, "I have stayed calm and walked with you until now, so now I will claim my right." He demands that Will fight him man-to-man and begins attacking him. Will evades the attack, but Shion shouts, "You are really annoying. I will crush you now." At the same time, Julius starts attacking Colette, separating her from the rest of the team. Shion continues to attack Will, who doesn't want to fight because they are on the same team, and tells him this is not the time to fight. But Shion insists that Will draw his sword and fight him. Finally, Will agrees and prepares his sword to fight. Shion is still attacking Will, who is struggling to dodge his attacks. Shion then unleashes a fiery attack and says, "You're jumping around like an animal. Are you only concerned with survival? Come and attack me." Will responds, "I can't do that. We are on the same team, and I want to fulfill my promise to Mr. Donan and the others." Shion then tells him, "If you don't fight, I'll burn you to ashes." Will thinks to himself, is fighting him my only option? Meanwhile, Colette is fleeing from Julius and his ice attacks, thinking to herself, "I need to hurry and stop Will and Shion." Julius calls out to her, "What's the matter? Why are you running like that? If you keep running, no one will consider you worthy of the title Princess of the Earth." He attacks her with his ice, but she defends herself only to fall into one of the traps set in the area. Julius strikes her with great force. At the same time, on the magical crystals, we see multiple copies of Julius appearing in different locations, surprising the students. It's revealed that Julius has cloned himself to be able to face all the students simultaneously. Next, Fingal speaks up saying, "Have you come to face me, Julius?" Julius replies, "Yes, I have, and I'm going to use my secret weapon to take you all down." But just then, Fingal attacks with his powerful magic and destroys him, only to discover that it was a mere ice clone of Julius. Fingal then says, "That's just like you, Julius. Who would have expected you to hide such a clever trick?" As he picks up a piece of ice, he realizes it's from the Magia Vander. The audience and students start wondering who will win and whether the victor will be Julius or Fingal. They also note that Team 6 was so close until Shion interfered. They question what Shion is doing and why he's so angry with Will. Another student then comments, "I can somewhat understand Shion's feelings." Shion continues to attack Will, preparing his most powerful attack, a massive fiery falcon. He launches the attack, but Will narrowly avoids it. However, the giant creature continues to pursue him. Will realizes that Shion is using the fiery falcon as a distraction so that he can launch an even stronger attack against him. Shion uses a specific spell to summon a fire guardian, intending to attack Will with it. Will becomes anxious about facing the guardian, but he quickly thinks that if he can cut off its wings, he might have a chance to defeat Shion. He knows that destroying the guardian's core is crucial, because otherwise it won't stop attacking. The Fire Guardian chases after Will, trying to strike him with its flames. Will fends off its attacks with all his strength, realizing that Shion has primarily summoned the Guardian for defense and to buy time for something else. However, the Guardian is relentless, attacking from all directions. Shion mocks Will, reminding him that he was better than this when he defeated the evil Sentinel. Will asks Shion why he's doing this, saying there's no reason for them to fight. Shion replies that he surely hates him after all the insults and mockery he's endured. He confesses that he despises Will and is always filled with rage whenever he thinks of him. Shion says he's lost count of how many times he's imagined taking revenge on him. Will, now determined, says he wants to defeat Julius, but Shion yells at him furiously, saying that just seeing him infuriates him to the point of being unable to bear it. He adds that it angers him even more when he sees Will refusing to give up, despite being talentless, and yet always ignoring him. Will is deeply saddened and shocked to hear this, realizing that Shion views him with such contempt. Shion continues, warning Will that if he says anything else, he will crush him completely. I wanted honesty somewhere in my heart. This is what I truly desired. If you're saying you'll acknowledge me, then I must accept your challenge with all my strength. Shion then uses his magic on Will. Will thinks to himself, the Guardian will counter any clumsy attempts to get close, so I need to watch the timing of his magical attack and seize the opportunity to strike back. He's using wide area destructive magic in a Guardian's attack, but I've already seen the creature's path. Will charges towards the creature, fending off its blows and cutting the creature's core, causing it to explode. He then heads towards Shion, who prepares to use his magic again. But Colette intervenes, creating a barrier between them and saying, "Stop what you're doing," to the Academy's festival. Mike says in just a few moments, after all the obstacles they've overcome, the main teams will enter the arena. Now, who will be the first to appear? We see that it's Team 9, led by Julius, who no one here can stop. But just in time, Will arrives and angrily confronts Julius, saying, "I challenge you." With Lady Elveria sleeping in her room when Sarisa enters and hits her on the head to wake her up. Sarisa tells her to act in a manner befitting a Magia Vander, as all she does is sleep or gaze from the tower. She then hands Elveria a document to review, which contains names of candidates suggested by their spies. When Elveria takes the paper, Sarisa informs her that one of the candidates, Julius, is highly skilled in ice magic and is currently performing at the festival. He is a strong contender to be her successor. Elveria agrees to consider Julius as her successor if he is truly strong. The scene then shifts to the battlefield, where the event organizer announces that this match is crucial. The winner of the crown will be the champion. The match will be between Team 6 and Team 9. We see Will standing before Julius, who expresses his pleasure at the chance to fight him. Julius says he is glad to face Will and that he won't crush him without first humiliating him. To ensure he is satisfied with his performance, Will responds that he does not intend to lose before Julius apologizes to Donan and the others. Julius mocks Will, calling him talentless and weak, and then uses his magic to create smoke, filling the area. Despite not seeing them, Will senses their positions by their footsteps and the timing of their spells. He decides to keep running to avoid their attacks as they attempt to corner him. The three attackers miss their strikes, but Will determines their exact locations. He takes to the air to attack Julius, but is surprised when a fourth attack is launched at him. Julius explains that the attackers never moved from their spots. Suddenly, multiple copies of Julius appear. Julius approaches Will and uses ice magic to paralyze him. Surprising everyone with his strength, Will realizes that Julius is using a spell invented by Elveria, a powerful woman who helped create 12 spells and whose magical style was named after her. Julius is now using one of her techniques, Ars Weiss. Will asks Julius how he can use Elveria's spell, and Julius laughs, claiming he learned it on his own and has reached the level of Magia Vander. He also says that from now on, Elpisfina's magic is no longer special, and he will one day master all magical techniques. Julius then attacks Will with magical spells, but Will dodges them all. Julius boasts that he will definitely defeat Will because he can control his clones at will and will eliminate him no matter what. Julius's allies use their magic to combine their powers, creating a magical barrier in the shape of a triangle around Will, trapping him inside. Julius then drops a massive ice boulder on top of Will to finish him off, astounding everyone with his power. Julius approaches Will and boasts that he has defeated Will using Elpisfina's magic and will soon become Elveria's successor. Suddenly, the ice boulder begins to crack and Will emerges unscathed, leaving Julius shocked. Will tells him that there is still a chance for him to be defeated. Julius, enraged, declares that he will defeat Will this time in front of everyone. He and his clones begin to fire ice blasts at Will, who jumps into the air and quickly knocks out two of Julius's team members with a single blow, leaving them unconscious. Will tells Julius that his magic is neither perfect nor complete. Teacher Edward explains that Will had hidden himself within the barrage of ice and attacked from above just as he had done when fighting Edward. The audience is astonished, having just witnessed Will defeat two strong members of Team 9 with one strike. Julius's clones begin to shatter, and the crowd is perplexed, wondering why Julius's clones are collapsing. Will explains that he was controlling his clones with the help of his teammates, and when they lost consciousness, all the clones collapsed. He adds that Julius can only use Elva's magic for a short period and is far from mastering it. Julius is infuriated by these remarks. Meanwhile, Elvi reflects that Julius is indeed strong, and if everything on the paper is true, he is likely to be her successor. However, she desires someone who is truly by her side and wishes for her friend Sieve to be that person. Returning to the battle, Will comments that Julius's R's wise ability is incomplete. Unlike the Guardians who act independently, Julius needs to control them effectively. Will had relied on his teammates to manipulate the spell, and Julius hasn't perfected it yet. Julius, angered, claims that someone talentless like Will has no right to speak, as if he knows everything, and starts attacking him. Will dodges all of Julius's attacks, and Julius summons another clone using ice blasts once again. Will easily avoids these attacks, and realizes that Julius can now only control 4 clones at once. Without his teammates, Julius can only take a defensive stance. Julius is surprised when Will attacks him directly rather than the clones. Julius narrowly blocks a fatal blow from Will with a defensive ice wall and asks how Will identified him as the real Julius. Will explains that the internal temperature of all the clones is significantly different from the users. Specifically, -36 degrees, which can drop further with the use of other spells. If not controlled tightly, it forms ice crystals around their feet, as the ice clones are destroyed again. Julius questions how someone like Will could know this spell better than he does. Will replies that he and Elvi were childhood friends who grew up together in the same orphanage. This background allowed him to study her magic deeply, even though he could never match her skill. As a result, he understands every strength and weakness of Elvi's magic. Julius, still furious, declares that it is impossible for Will to defeat him. Julius attacks again, but Will easily defends himself. Seeing this, Julius starts to give up and sits on the ground. Will tells Julius that he's impressive because no other magician has managed to replicate Elvi's magic. He explains that the R's Way spell was created by Elvi when she was just 2 years old. The audience is astonished by this revelation. Will continues that the spell is not perfect and has weaknesses. Julius, still boasting about his strength, is frustrated by Will's comments. He recalls the joy he felt when he first learned the spell and starts mocking Will. Julius then clones himself multiple times, creating 8 copies, surprising everyone. He tells Will that his limit isn't just 4 clones, and that he can do much more. Julius plans to use this numerical advantage to win this time. Will remembers a time when he was a child and faced 10 of Elvi's clones, but he was undeterred. He rushes toward Julius and defeats all his clones in a single second, then strikes the real Julius. The crowd is amazed by Will's strength and cheers as he defeats Julius. They're stunned by the scene, claiming that the talentless person has defeated a top-tier magician, with no one left to challenge him. The only thing remaining is to claim the crown. Fignal and his team arrive at the crown, with Fignal saying that while Will was occupied with his battle, he took the opportunity to grab it, thus winning for Team 12. The Academy, we see 2 people approaching Will and saying, "What do you think about joining us to go to Dimas? You fool." However, they then acknowledge his immense strength and say, "You should come with us to Dimas." But then some girls appear and say, "We also wanted to invite Will to join our team." They start arguing with each other over who Will should join. At that moment, Xion and Fingal arrive and say, after seeing Will's strength in the test, everyone is going crazy over him. Next, we see Colette saying to everyone, "Stop, all of you, you underestimated him. And now you want to include him in your teams. How selfish. Now you've made Will angry." However, Will is actually very happy about this and says, "People are inviting me to their teams. Is this what friendship really means?" A girl then says to Colette, "Stop it. You were the one who kept him all to yourself from the start." She grabs Will's hand and says, "Come on, let's all go to Dimas." When Colette sees this, she gets jealous and says, "Stop. Will has other plans with me tomorrow. We're going shopping together." To Will on his way when a girl named Lahana appears. She is a perfect student who scored top marks in writing, spells, and practical applications. She approaches him and asks if he has time to come with her. She then takes him, and they go to a house. When Will enters the room, he sees Zexion, Julius, and Lihana tells him that in the second half of the last year at the Academy, practical training for all the students will begin, and she wants the 5 of them to form a team together to attack Dimas. Shion gets angry and asks her why she brought Will to them. Will thinks to himself that everyone in the room hates him, wondering what he should do here. As Shion moves to attack Will, Floria stops him and advises everyone to listen to Lihana. She tells them that practical training for all students is approaching, along with the Grand Wizards event of the year, and she wants to add Will to their team because he excelled in the Great Magic Festival. She believes he has something no one else has. Julius tells her that she's wrong because Will be an obstacle in their path. Shion also says that he refuses to have Will among them. Floria then tells them that they are wrong about Will and asks how they can say that about him when he defeated both of them. He points out that Will possesses immense strength, agility, and speed that rival the agility of monsters, and his swords surpass their magic wands. He says that everyone should respect Will and honor Lihana's decision. Lihana then tells them that she wants to use all of them to be at the top so they can ascend the tower. She aspires to become very famous because her eyes are set on the future. Will then asks her, "Weren't you selected in the Great Magic Festival? You are already very strong." She tells him that she has been in contact with the Lightning Clan, and indeed they have noticed progress in my achievements after graduation. But I push myself to be completely honest. As for those who are still at the academy, I want to become stronger and stronger. She then explains that she comes from the Owens family in general, a family not known for longevity because their lifespans are short, so I must achieve great accomplishments before my time runs out. I know that life and death are in God's hands, but in this world we want to do everything we can to fulfill our dreams. I believe that simply climbing the tower is not enough for me. What I need is to become a Magia Vander. Will is surprised by her words because she is a very strong person. She then tells them that everyone who has an interest and wants to reach it must throw their coin into that cup. Everyone does so. The scene shifts outside, where Will's friends ask him, "Where were you? We checked the smithy workshop and didn't find you. We searched for you everywhere." However, he is very upset and doesn't respond to them, continuing on his way. He then stops and tells them that he will be doing the practical training with Lihana's team. During the training, we, the professors, will be stationed inside the Dimas, but this doesn't prevent violent casualties in its depth. I am telling you from this place, from this hall, that recklessness is not allowed. Abandon any reckless heroic acts, as this behavior can cost you your lives. What we demand from you is not blind admiration for the Magia Vanders. Keep your heads down, strengthen your resolve, and be patient and steadfast. After half an hour of this long lecture, they head to their camps to prepare for departure. The teacher tells them, "Get ready. Heroes, your time limit is 1 week. Apart from the usual practical applications, you will dive into the Dimas and try to survive. A base camp has been set up on each floor. Make sure to check your locations on the maps you received. At the conclusion of the practical applications, or if you choose to withdraw, make sure to evacuate to a safe area. We, the professors, will be on full alert." Now, the practical training for all students will begin. In the next episode, we will see very exciting things and people whose heads are chopped off with a single blow. Will and his friends will have a great role in these dungeons. Next, we move to the students' practical applications. Everyone prepares and sets off. Will talks to himself, saying that he will achieve real results and pave the way to see Elfie. All the students fly from the top of the cliff and land on the ground. In front of them appears a large crimson ant, followed by an entire swarm of ants. Will decides to shield his friends and protect them, drawing his sword. Fignal tells him not to tire himself out and that Lihana will handle it. Lihana uses her magic, lightning magic, to attack and kill all the ants. We then see Fignal telling Will about Lihana's family, the Owenzos family, who are a lineage of knights. Lihana is rare among mages, as she specializes in close-range combat. After killing all the ants, Lihana tells them that competing for points will be quite troublesome, and that they need to advance faster than any other team. We then see Will and his friends in Dimes. Suddenly, a giant ant appears in front of Will, but Julius uses ice magic and freezes the ant. Will realizes that Julius and the others are using search magic to cover a wider area than his senses can reach, and at this rate, they will clear out all the monsters before any of them can intervene. When Will manages to kill one monster, he sees Fignal defeating all the monsters at once and tells him that he's more of an obstacle than expected and isn't good at fighting. Lihana tells him to give Will time and that he will show his true strength against enemies. Julius then tells her that he already mentioned that Will can't even use search magic and will hold them back. We then see Will using his magic staff to absorb the remnants of magic from the slain monsters. In this way, their magic staff acts as a recorder, allowing the academy to track the number of targets the student has defeated. Will decides to collect the remains of the monsters to earn his points. Then, we see Colette asking Will if he's okay. He replies that he's fine and will do his best to be useful to them at some point. They continue defeating the monsters, but Will is unable to contribute as everyone is too skilled to allow him any chance to intervene. Colette then tells them that a day has passed since the start of the practical applications for all students and suggests they take a short. Vignal tells her that the place is unsafe and uses his magic to create a fire barrier around them to prevent any monsters from attacking during their rest. Will then distributes food to everyone, handing it to Julius and Shion. When he approaches Fignal, Fignal asks him to place the food on the ground, saying he doesn't want to touch it by mistake. This angers Colette, who is upset with how they are treating Will. Fignal explains to her that they are all mages, but he is an elf. Will quickly reassures her, saying that he doesn't want anyone to argue because of him and that he's fine. He sits alone and reflects, noting that the elves, like the dwarves, descend from another world, are gifted in magic and often regard themselves as superior to others. Their behavior is unbearable and their talents surpass most mages. The leader of one of the Magia Vander's groups is the Elf Queen. Lihana then briefs the group on their plan. Their main goal is Luminous Nibiris, which is worth 110 points, and there is only one. They must kill the Guardian of the 10th floor, and she had formed this team specifically to defeat Nibiris. She believes they have enough skill to bring down a monster worth 110 points. Lihana informs them that they will take the longest path to the 10th floor and deal with the remaining monsters after. As they reach the 10th floor, they see many slain monsters scattered on the ground. They speculate that other students might have reached the floor before them. However, Fignal assures them that they took a very short route to get to the 10th floor, making it impossible for any students to have arrived before them. Will stands in front of one of the dead monsters and realizes it wasn't killed by magic, but was torn apart with sheer physical strength. As they continue, they notice that Dymas is eerily quiet. While walking, they suddenly discover that the Guardian of the 10th floor has already been killed. Everyone is shocked and wonders who could have done this. Will recalls his teacher's words, where he explained that certain monsters can hide and avoid detection, even by search magic. Back in the present, the Guardian monster suddenly appears above them, launching a powerful strike that hits Fignal. The group tries to use their magic against the monster, but it destroys the ground beneath them, causing everyone to fall. Will attempts to save Fignal, grabs him, and they both fall together into another floor. Will realizes they are now below the 10th floor, meaning they are outside the Academy's jurisdiction entirely. Meanwhile, we see Julius and Shion on the 11th floor, confused as to how they ended up there. Only incredibly powerful magic users can descend to this dangerous place. Lihana, injured, realizes that the vast area she's in extends all the way to the 15th. The structure is complex and the monsters are extremely strong. She knows that if they don't reunite with the others, demons will devour them alive. The scene then shifts to Fignal's past, where Eleanor tells him that living in the unknown within a magic academy, without possessing any real skill in illusion magic, is utterly shameful and a stain on the honor of their people. She then decides to cut off his. He wakes up in this dream to find that Will, his companion, has decapitated a very powerful monster, and Vignal is amazed by this. However, when Will tries to help him, Vignal tells him, "Don't touch me, you talentless fool." Will responds, "Even if it means you'll hate me for the rest of your life, I can't leave you here. But let me treat your arm first." Vignal then asks him to hand over the first aid kit and starts treating himself without Will's help. After that, Will thinks to himself that Vignal is injured, and despite our medical supplies, we've almost lost all our gear. We have 3 secondary weapons left, including Rosley's magical tools, and each of us has our own food and drink. This applies to Colette and the others as well, so we can hold out for 2 days. But given the harsh conditions on the first floor, we only have 24 hours. That's all we've got. He then says he wants to prioritize finding Colette and the others, and this means wandering through the Dimes. He asks Vignal if he can come with him. Vignal replies, "The best thing to do when stuck in Damas is to wait for rescue." But Will responds, if we don't act, we'll die immediately. That's how I see this demise. Besides, with that monster on the 10th floor, our rescue will take time. Meanwhile, we find the teachers wondering what's going on. We see Teacher Eliza, and Teacher Warwick asks her what's happening, as she's also fighting monsters. The students are fleeing, and everyone is in a state of panic. She tells him it's a stampede. The monsters destroyed the base camp on the 8th floor. He asks her, how did the monsters destroy the military base? And what about Bruno and the others? She tells him they were killed. Something decapitated all of them. Teacher Warwick is shocked, and she adds, we don't even know the situation on the 9th floor because all our camps were destroyed. But they must have fallen into the same chaos we did here on the 8th floor. The teacher says, it wasn't just a monster stampede. Academy teachers were killed. This can't be a coincidence. Was this planned? What's really happening here? After that, Teacher Edward arrives and tells him practical applications and exams have been canceled because these abnormal phenomena are putting the students in danger, and we're going to intervene now. Meanwhile, Will and his companion Vignal are in Dymas, searching for their friends. Will tells him that he should stop using search magic because if he overuses it, he'll exhaust himself and should prioritize preserving his health. But Vignal replies, what are you going to do if we fall into another ambush? You need to shut up. We're on the 11th floor. No one knows what could happen. How can you be so noble in a place this dangerous? Will responds, search magic is effective within an area, but if we use it gradually, it varies from one region to another. But the steps should be at least 140 miles, and I cover about 70. I also scan a certain range and want to divide the work to benefit from that, so we're not both wasting our energy for nothing. Will adds, let the enemies directly in our vicinity be my responsibility, and Kiki's too, referring to the little cat. We'll deal with any enemy your magic doesn't detect, while you stay ready against distant monsters because we want to avoid facing any large swarms. He then says now ambushes aren't our biggest concern. We need to avoid combat as much as possible. Vignal responds to him, how can you be this calm under these circumstances? But Will tells him to ascend the tower. I have no choice but to lie about gaining strength. I've conducted thorough research on Dymas and tried everything I could. I've been stuck on different floors more than 100 times. With that experience, I know how to handle these situations. After that, the cat starts sensing something approaching, and they prepare for it. Soon, they find themselves surrounded by a group of monsters from all directions. Will says he senses different swarms in the other passageways too, and that they have no choice but to... They begin battling, and we see that Will is performing excellently, cutting down the monsters one by one. Vignal is amazed by his strength and wonders. How can he move like this? How can he fight in this situation? Turning knowledge into wisdom and the unknown into known. Could it be that he's become this strong compared to me? Suddenly, a monster appears behind Vignal. He says, I don't have time to prepare a counterattack spell, but I'll hide myself first with this spell and then reorganize myself. He casts a concealment spell, but despite this, the monster begins attacking him, as if unaware of the spell. Vignal screams, but at the last moment, Will intervenes and slices the monster in half. Afterward, Will explains these monsters don't have eyes, so their sense of smell is highly developed to compensate. Illusions don't affect them. Vignal laughs afterward and says, how embarrassing. I'm really not talented. I'm just a leftover, a dull person. Will is surprised by his words. To Lahana, who tells Colette that whether one is discovered in the magic festival or creates a new spell on their own, those who prove themselves are the ones who ascend the tower, regardless of their graduation rank. Over the past 6 years, she has seen many talented people leave, and she is nicknamed the perfect lady at the academy. But they are nothing more than small frogs who know nothing of the vast oceans. She then tells her about the past, when there was a first-year student like her who ascended to become a Magia Vander. She was incredibly talented, and they were the weakest at the academy, unable to even dream of being true talents. The scene shifts back to Vignal's conversation with Will, where Vignal tells him that the first person who taught him despair was his half-sister, who was the pride of their people. Her name was Eleanor. The scene shifts to Will, who is fighting monsters. They are in a level with monsters worth more than 5 points, and Vignal is astonished by Will's ability to kill them. After finishing the battle, Will approaches Vignal, and Vignal asks him, why do you protect me? Why don't you abandon me like the people of my village did? Will tells him it's because he's a good elf. Suddenly, Kiki, the cat, alerts them that something strange is happening. Vignal uses search magic but can't find anything. Will then tells him that the Damas is creating a monster to fight them. Suddenly, something strange happens around them, and a monster appears on the ceiling, a fiery creature. It is a special type of monster from this floor, known for its bad reputation, worth 11 points. Physical attacks don't affect their fiery bodies, and they have high resistance to magic. The only thing effective against them is elf illusion magic. Will asks Vignal to help him with his magic as much as he can. Vignal begins to cry, telling him that he can't do it. His magic is incomplete, and even if he tries, he will fail and mess things up. Will tells Vignal that it's okay to mess up. They aren't geniuses. They have to make mistakes in order to learn. Even if they fail, they won't die, as they share a dream together. The battle begins, and Will attempts to fight the monster with his sword, but quickly realizes it has no effect. Vignal tries to use his magic on the monster, but fails, and the creature attacks Will. Will defends himself and tells Vignal to attack again with his magic, encouraging him to never give up because he believes in him. Vignal recalls how he was bullied by the people of his village, who called him a disgrace. Moved by these memories, he decides to attack the monster and prove himself worthy of Will's trust. Vignal uses his magic, successfully attacking and defeating the monster. Will is overjoyed, and Vignal apologizes to him, asking for forgiveness for his past wrongs. Will tells him that he has already forgiven him, as he has always respected him and seen him as great. Vignal stands up, shakes Will's hand, and they form a new friendship. Afterward, we see Will sitting with a map called the Seeker's Map beside him. He tells Vignal that it's one of Rusty's magical tools, which creates a map automatically using the blood of its users, so they haven't been wandering aimlessly. Kiki, the cat, remembers Colette and Shion's scent and begins searching for them. Back with Will and Vignal, they stand in front of a dead monster killed by Shion's fire magic. They're surprised that Shion managed to defeat a whole pack of Watchman monsters by himself. Julius appears and tells them that he helped with that. Will asks if Colette and Lahana are with them. We return to Colette and Lahana, and suddenly, their teacher Bruno appears. But shockingly, his head is cut off and falls to the ground. They're stunned as he greets them, and Marzi, who is with Bruno, mocks him for bothering with greetings. He insults Bruno, calling him a headless fool, and questions how these two girls managed to reach the 11th floor. Bruno speculates that Duke must have failed to kill them, and they might have fallen through a hole to reach this floor. Marzi gets angry, accusing Bruno of exposing their presence. Lahana and Colette, shocked by the sight of their teacher's severed heads, are confused, not understanding what's happening. Bruno then grabs his head and smashes it, revealing that they are ordinary villains who want to destroy the false sky. Lahana realizes that he's referring to the great Magia Vander's barrier. If that barrier falls, disaster will strike. Bruno tells them that he'll kill them and take their heads. Just as he begins using magic to do so, Will and the others arrive to save Colette and Lahana. Marcy and Bruno decide to flee from Will and his friends, but before they leave, they use their magic to summon a powerful Duke monster with 270 points to kill everyone. The 1 in 1,000 rule is explained. This is how the tower figures out points. A monster that is worth 1 point is the same as a magician that is worth 1,000 points. There is a 270-point monster in front of our heroes that would take 270,000-point magic to beat. After that, we see the monster attack Will and his friends very hard. It attacks everyone, and Will tells them they need to run away if they want to stay alive. Though most of the group runs away, Vignal stops and chooses to face the monster. He casts the Alf's Ringel spell, but it doesn't work. The monster gets past the illusion magic and attacks Vignal. Will saves Vignal from the monster's blow, and the two of them run away together. Later, Will tells his friends that he had read about this monster before. He says that it is a Duke, a very bad monster that usually shows up on the 25th floor, which is near the top of the list of bad monsters. Then Julius asks the monster why it's here when it should be on the 25th floor. Lahana thinks it must have something to do with the two bad magicians they met earlier and who opened the gate. Then we see Will and his friends watching the monsters. Will tells them that the Great Duke has taken charge of the smaller monsters and told them to look for them. Julius gets angry and tells them they can't get away because they are going to die. Will replies that killing the Great Duke is the only way to get off this floor alive. When a ruler is at least a baron, The bad monsters set up a domain that covers several floors. If they kill the ruler, though, the monsters will no longer have a leader. Colette asks Will if he means that their leader was instantly brought to this floor through a gate. She also says that if they can break the chain of command, it will be easier for the rescue team from the academy to get to them. Will backs up what she thought. They are making a lot of noise, and Julius tells them to stop because they can't beat the monster by themselves. Will tells them that he has a plan and isn't forcing them to help. Still mad, Julius tells him he doesn't trust him at all. Vignal steps in and says that he fully trusts Will because his knowledge has saved him many times and he believes in his abilities. Colette also says that Will knows more about Dimas than anyone else. Yay. Shion then says that they have to fight the Great Duke, but that doesn't mean he trusts Will completely. Laihana also tells him that she has full faith in Will, and that Will should have been their leader from the start because he is the only one who hasn't given up in fear and hopelessness. Then she tells them that Will tell them what to do and they will all do it. When Julius gets angry, he asks if they are all crazy for following Will. Will goes up to him and tells him that his plan isn't enough to win. He asks Julius to help them out and offers to teach him a secret elf magic trick. As soon as Will starts to explain the plan, the monster and the friends start to fight. The monster attacks Will and the others, and Julius makes copies of them. There are many copies of him casting spells at the monster. Elfi's Arze spell is used in the plan as a special magic trick from Bisvina. This spell lets the casting go on. Usually, Julius wouldn't be able to release the spell if it was interrupted while it was being cast, but Arze lets the next copy pick up where the first copy left off. So, it should be possible to put out powerful spells that take a long time to cast. Julius tells him it will take a lot of strength, but he will keep going until the end. Colette, Shion, and Laihana use their magic to slow down the monster while Will attacks it from behind with his sword. The fight goes on. All of this is meant to stop it from moving until we see Julius, who casts the spell at the monster with all his might. The monster's combined power doesn't have much of an effect on it, which makes sense since the monster has 270 points. The attack does, however, slow the monster down. After that, Will tells Laihana to use her super speed maneuver to attack the monster. This lets her sneak up close enough to hit it. Laihana uses her strong attack to hit the monster, but at that very moment, a strange thing happens. A barrier of protection goes up. Is this a button circle for a remote or something else? It looks like the barrier around the monster was set off by itself. Could it have been the two magicians who were controlling the monster that set it off? After that, Will creates a shield with Kiki to protect and help them. The wall wasn't strong enough though, and that's when Will's glasses broke because the monster is so strong. One of their friends uses his power to stop them from hitting the ground before they happen. Will can't believe what just took place. The group keeps an eye on the monster as it cuts its way toward them, getting ready for another attack. The others are told by Laihana that they need to run away, but they have to take Will with them. She offers to buy them time to get away, even if it means her death, because she feels guilty for not killing the monster sooner. For her mistake, she thinks she has to pay, even if it means giving up her life. The others yell at her and beg her not to give up her life. They tell her that she is too important to them, and that she is their best friend and protector. Laihana wants them to do what she says, though. Vignal then comes over and tells her he will stay with her and fight with her. The others run away very quickly and try to attack the monster that can't be hurt, but all of their efforts fail horribly. Shion is very angry and is telling himself that they need to leave this place right away because Vignal and Laihana are probably going to die. Shion thinks they should run away so their deaths don't go to waste. He struggles with the idea that leaving them would be terrible, but he feels stuck in his own problems. Will then tells Shion, "I want you to hit me." Shion is shocked and turns to him. "I can't do anything now that my glasses are broken," Will says, looking sad and crying. "I'm so scared without them that I can't move." "I have nothing to do." Shion gets very angry and runs at Will, grabbing him by the collar and yelling, "How can you say that? You were the one who began everything. We had hoped because of you." Shion then throws Will to the ground out of anger. Will made Shion angry, so he went up to him and started beating him badly. He was mad and scared that Laihana and Vignal might die. He thought that Will was to blame for everything since Will was the one who led them here. As Shion hit him, Will grabbed Sheen's hand and told him he was grateful because he was no longer shaking. After that, Will got up and asked Colette to watch Kiki for him. The way Will was acting confused Shion, who saw that he didn't look scared anymore. Colette answered and said that Will was really scared. He was always scared. Shion was shocked and asked Colette how she could say something like that because he had never believed it. Colette told him that Shion had never used a sword before. You could cast spells from far away with a magic staff, but not so much with a sword. Will had to fight much bigger and stronger enemies up close, which scared him. Will was really very weak, but running away scared him more than anything else. His size and strength made him look brave, even though he was just a normal coward. Everyone thought he was brave because he was quick. but he was really scared. After this, Will runs toward the monster and aims to hit its wings, which were protecting it from attacks. He called out to Colette and told her that Lihana and the others could no longer fight. It was up to the two of them to figure out what to do. When Will tried to hit the monster, it hit him back and knocked him down. Will decided to keep attacking the monster, even though he was so scared he couldn't think straight. He knew that the thought of losing someone scared him even more. Will was hit by several powerful attacks from the monster, but he was able to dodge all of them. Colette saw this as her chance and decided to give it her all. The monster was furious that they were still strong, so it kept attacking, but no matter how many times it tried, it couldn't beat them. Shion then uses all of his power and yells, "Remember the memory of the burning pain that turns you into nothingness. Nah, the flames that scorch the earth, and put out your sorrowful fires with the fires of what will never return. Burn our enemies now and drown them in oblivion. There is nothing you can do that I can't overcome." Shion yells at the monster, making it angry. Fire magic attacks it. The fire doesn't hurt the monster though. Colette says, "This can't be true. It couldn't be killed by even the most powerful spell cast from very close. What a surprise. Nothing seems strong enough to beat the monster. Neither magic nor the sword can kill it." A strange force suddenly appears in front of Will and tells him it's a magic staff and a sword. In the past, a young girl and a boy are talking. "Are you sure about this?" the boy asks. In response, she says, "I've made up my mind to protect the world. The magic staff and the sword will meet and join together one day." When we go back to the present, Will runs for the sword and yells at Shion, "Magic staff and sword." When Will lights the sword on fire, everyone is shocked by what he did. The sword has absorbed the spell, Vignal says in shock. Will tells himself in his mind, "My vision turned red, and power built up inside me. I had the feeling that a huge amount of strength was pushing me forward. And all of a sudden I could name it. Yeah." Will attacks the monster with all his might, using the sword and the magic staff together to do so. He finally cuts the monster in half, killing it for good. Will says, "The power has built up inside me. I felt like a flood of energy was flowing through me, energizing me. My aura turned red," he says. Then he attacks the monster and cuts it in half. Following this, we see his friends being shocked by what has happened, while Will stands firm with the sword on fire. He then drops to his knees and says that his sword is beginning to return to its normal state and the power is beginning to leave him. He doesn't know what happened because a group of monsters and guards show up after the great beast leader has died and say they are too weak to fight anymore. Master Arkner is on his way to them right now, but the monsters are about to kill Julius. Then, a beautiful figure appears and casts a spell on all the monsters, setting them on fire. The students are shocked, including Will, who says, "That's a high-level annihilation spell. Who did the casting?" It turns out that this person is Aaron Mistrius, the ruler of light. He has the strongest magic staff in all of the deserts and seeks out magifinders. They don't understand why he is here. Then this person speaks, thanking them for their bravery and praise, which makes them very happy because even the lowest beings tremble with happiness when they are around him. He is the most powerful sorcerer and the most powerful ruler. After that, this person comes up to Will and asks what his name is. Will tells them that his name is Finn. The scene then changes to two evil people talking about how moving the goods was the right thing to do. They say that if they had been attacked, they wouldn't have been able to get back that sword. He doesn't want to fight with these people, saying that their mission was perfectly completed. So, the practical training for all the students came to an end in a way that has never been seen before. 11 people died, and they were all academy instructors. No students were hurt because of the work of the teachers who were still alive. The school looked for any information about the people who did what happened but couldn't find any. They were still shocked by what had happened. The survivors began to take it easy. Then Shion speaks up and asks who the cursed pair was. He says that they are evil beings with enough power to kill the Academy's teachers, but no one knows anything about them. Colette says she doesn't believe Professor Bruno and the others are really dead. They wouldn't know what happened to them without the Supreme Ruler's team being there. They know that, despite everything, they are still alive and no one on their team has died. Lihana says that she put together the team to get attention from the tower. She does have a good eye. They work well together. Even though she is young, she tells them how grateful she is. Colette then brings her food, but Lahaina eats it all, which surprises Colette. They say, "So this is the truth. She eats voraciously." Will says, "Yes, she eats more ravenously than I do." Then Lahaina thanks him, telling him that none of them would have lived without his bravery and smarts. Will replies, "This is because we worked together and formed a coalition," but Julius cuts in and says, "At one point, we were all going to die because of that idiot." He says he was so scared he almost froze. Will went through most of what happened, but Colette calms him down. Then Shion asks what that powerful force was that took in all of the fiery magic. It was very bright and strong, like it ate up the spell completely. Hannah continues her speech by saying that the magic might not have been a summoning spell because it's not even clear if we should call it magic. Do you know how to explain this? While Will is still, Shion tells him to answer these questions right away. Will replies that he didn't get anything and couldn't explain the power that hit him. All of his thoughts stopped. However, Professor Ruchner and the others might know how to explain these things, so it's best to ask them and find out what the exact event was. Then he asks them about the little boy he met, but he doesn't know who the boy is or whose son he is. His friend tells him that this person is from the Finn tribe and that he read about them in papers that belong to the Owensels family. The younger ones of their kind have learned a lot about the Daimas over many generations, even though they can't use magic. The deal they made with the tower during the rule of the Sorceress Queen says that they will be our guides and help us find new areas in the Daimas maze. People told us that we wouldn't have been able to get to the lower floors without their help. He tells himself that he is interested in the power that killed the great roosters, but what's more important is that he felt something very strange when I met that boy, just to Will practicing with the sword. Wow. When everyone else is hurt, his friend tells him to rest and asks him why he's still training. He tells her that he can't just stand there, so he has to keep going because he wants to become a Magia Vander. His friends talk about Will and say that he is a strange person who doesn't work with magic, but has amazing skills and should be respected as a warrior. He seems to be sincere and honest, which could be his strength. Then Shion quickly runs to the window and tells Will, "Hey, you fool, I want you to fight me." He then jumps off the balcony and grabs his stomach when he lands. His friend tells him he shouldn't have done that because he feels bad about it. He says, "If that fool can do it, then I can do it too out of jealousy." After that, they train to fight each other and Professor Ruchner watches from the balcony as they chase each other. Friends, this is the start of the journey. There may be more to this great anime than meets the eye. This time, the scene changes to Ruchner, who talks about something that happened 2 months ago in the practical application. He's sure that some of them are still coming to terms with what happened. No matter what, we can't just leave you to do nothing. You 6th-year students will no longer be in school because these are your last tests. The first test of your graduation tests will be given today. Everyone writes quickly. Is there more to this anime? If you want to get all the latest news, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell.